Well, thank you all for being here today. I'm very happy to introduce Mr. Matt Griggs, Matt, do you claim Jackson or Gadsden?
I claim Mason Grove.
Mason Grove, all right. From Mason Grove, right outside of Jackson, Tennessee. Happy that Kelly joined us as well here. I asked Matt to talk a little bit about testing biologicals and his use of poultry litter. These have been two things that have been pretty important to us in West Tennessee here in the past couple of years. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Matt. Thank you.
Thanks, Tyson. Appreciate the invite today. Really pleased to be able to be here and speak with y'all today, and hopefully y'all get a little something out of our experience. I'd like to try and keep this informal. If at any point y'all got any questions during the presentation, just yell them out. I'll do my best to answer them. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I definitely got a lot of failures to build my experience on, and I'm going to share some of them with you. Again, on the second part of our presentation about chicken litter. We've been using chicken litter on our farm since 2011, 2012, whatever. I had a guy that was really good, and I told him what farms I wanted to spread on. He took care of the sourcing part, he took care of the hauling part, and he took care of the spreading part, and all I did was send him a check. The environment in our area anyway for chicken litter has definitely changed in the last couple of years. Many of y'all know Tyson has moved into our area, and I thought, well, that's great. I'm gonna have all the chicken litter I need, and it's gonna be cheap. It hadn't happened quite like that. Fertilizer prices gone up, and when fertilizer prices go up, the demand for chicken litter goes up. We've had several very large farmers in our area that decided to transition over to using chicken litter, and they've kind of cornered the market. They got more resources, more contacts than I do, and it's made getting chicken litter pretty hard, and it's really driven up the price. But I'm a huge fan of chicken litter. I think it does great stuff. But the first rule of chicken litter is before you have any delivered on your farm, know what you're getting. You gotta have it tested, because the amount of nutrients in a ton of chicken litter can vary wildly from barn to barn, farm to farm, or even load to load, or even within shovelfuls in that load. It can vary wildly. Here's two different tests that we pulled out of the same dump truck load of fertilizer, and the values are quite a bit different. But after looking at a lot of tests on chicken litter, I've kind of come to the conclusion that really the analysis of any of the chicken litter we've gotten doesn't fall below a triple 45 with 10 pounds of sulfur. A lot of times it's a lot higher than that, but for the most part, it's not going to be below that. So when I'm figuring out how much we need to apply to our farms, how much extra synthetic fertilizer we need to apply to our farms to make up for the deficit that chicken litter doesn't cover, I'm using the analysis of a triple 45 per ton of litter. And then looking at our figures, this is kind of what our chicken litter costs. Each ton of litter to buy directly from the barn costs us between $27 to $37 per ton. For our hauling, generally going to be in that $16 a ton range, and then if you need it custom spread, going to be another $8 to $12 a ton, for a total cost of anywhere from $51 to $65 per ton. In my opinion, and after talking with a lot of people that have spread chicken litter, if you're trying to spread less than 1.5 tons per acre, you're just not going to get a very consistent spread, just because it's coming out in big clumps, and you need a minimum spread of 1.5 tons per acre is really what you need. Most everybody does 2 tons per acre. The more you go up, the more consistency you are going to get in your spread pattern. But for each ton of litter that costs, say, a maximum of $65 per ton in our area, to get the equivalent amount of nutrients in synthetic fertilizer at the prices that were listed this past Friday, to get the equivalent amount of nutrients is going to cost you a little over $71 an acre in synthetic fertilizer. So it kind of surprised me when I ran these figures, because fertilizer prices have come down a little bit. I was expecting commercial fertilizer to be a little bit cheaper than chicken litter, but it's not. Litter right now is definitely a cheaper fertilizer source. However, you can vary the analysis of chicken litter. About the minimum you need to apply of chicken litter to get a good, accurate spread pattern is about 1.5 tons per acre. I've heard of people applying 1 tons per acre, but I just don't think you're going to get a very even spread pattern because this stuff comes out in clumps and it's going to kind of be spotty on your application. Typical application is usually around 2 tons per acre, but we've been doing 1.5 for quite a while and really happy with what it's done. But when you apply 1.5 tons per acre, you're getting a minimum of analysis of a triple 68. Some farms, you might not need 68 pounds of phosphorus. You might have plenty of phosphorus. So when you look at something like that, chicken litters, even though it might be a cheaper fertilizer source, it's giving you something you don't need, so the value is not as good. But you can lower a commercial fertilizer rate. You can get any custom blend you want to. So if you need a lot of fertility on your farm, chicken litter is definitely going to be a lot more economical. If you just kind of want to maintain fertility, as far as economics, chicken litter probably not going to be as economical for you. And the key to thinking is when you're deciding to apply chicken litter, do you really need a blend of a 68, 68, 68 with 15 pounds of sulfur going across your field? If you don't, you're spending money you really don't have to spend. But some of the general rules of thumb when considering chicken litter is just because you applied a triple 68 to your field, it don't mean that that fertility is available right then. It typically takes around 3 years for the chicken litter to break down and make all of it available. I think about half of the chicken litter is available within the first year, but you definitely don't want to use chicken litter as your primary nitrogen source because it does take a while to become available and it's not going to be available right when you need it. But if you use it every year, it becomes very good because you're getting consistent breakdown all year long every year, and after 2 to 3 years, all the nutrients that you need out of that litter will be available. Much of the nitrogen in the chicken litter, it will be lost unless it's incorporated. It will be volatilized. It's kind of in an ammonia form, and it will gas off if it's not incorporated either by rainfall or by tillage. Now, we don't do any kind of tillage, and we do try to apply in front of a rain, but I typically don't count on the nitrogen available from chicken litter and what I apply to the crop. If I get some out of it, it's more of a benefit, but we try to apply it during the winter. We got a lot of rainfall during the winter, and then we've got cover crops that we're applying it to that can take up the nitrogen if it does get incorporated and it won't get leached out through the soil. There's a lot of people that will say that chicken litter, you don't need to apply lime if you apply chicken litter. That's not true. Chicken litter does have a lot of calcium in it. It's a very good source of calcium. But what you need to bring pH up in soils is calcium carbonate, and that's the active ingredient in agricultural lime. Chicken litter does not have calcium carbonate in there. It does have calcium, and I think a reason that maybe you might not have to lime as much is if you're reducing your synthetic fertilizer, especially like your DAP and your urea, ammonium nitrate. If you're reducing those applications, you're not putting as much hydrogen ions onto the soil that are going to lower your pH. Chicken litter is not a miracle product. It's not going to make you fantastic yields all by itself in year one. It does take time, but the greatest results we've seen has been continued use over time. And the big key in agriculture today is precision application. There ain't nothing precise about chicken litter application. I mean, if you can hit close to your target rate, consider that a win. But spread pattern, you do your best to calibrate the spreader, but it's not going to be a perfect spread pattern. If you get a gust of wind come up, litter is light and fluffy, it's going to disrupt your spread pattern. There ain't nothing precise about chicken litter, so don't expect it to be. Some of the additional agronomic enhancements that we've seen, help build up organic matter some. You're adding biology to the soil. You want to apply a biological to your soil, there's not a better biological product to apply to your soil than chicken litter is. Just think about all the microbes and everything that's in that chicken litter that's now going onto your soil, and a lot of them are going to be decomposers. Decomposers are going to help break down your residue, increase your nutrient availability. It's a fantastic source for your existing soil biology. Not applying as much salt to your soil. But then the biggest benefit, in my opinion, is think about all those micronutrients that you really don't apply. You might apply like a foliar feed in your crops of copper, zinc, manganese, and all that kind of stuff. You're kind of getting that for free in chicken litter. That's the way I look at it. But do you make any kind of increased yields with chicken litter over commercial fertilizer? I think with continued use, you do. You look at this yield map, this field right here on the left, we've been farming that field since the mid-'80s. And over the course of the years, it was always our best yielding field. It's not a bottom ground or anything. It's hill ground, but it's pretty flat, got real deep soils, really high productive. In fact, that field is where I made my first ever 3-bale cotton. It's just always good yields. This field right over here, we picked up about 5 years ago, and we immediately started applying chicken litter to it. This field, we could not apply chicken litter to it because the landlord did not want us to apply it to it because he was worried about the neighbors up there. He said, don't apply chicken litter. But on this one down here, we started applying chicken litter to it immediately. After 2 years of applying chicken litter, we grew corn. Both those fields had the exact same variety of corn. They were planted on the exact same day, and everything else on management of the crop was the exact same. This field over here, while I thought it was decent ground, it had a low pH. We're trying to build it back up. It was rolling. It was eroded some too. But after using chicken litter for a couple years, the new field on the right, that's not as good a soil, easily out-yielded the farm on the left, which I thought was one of our best farms. And ever since this has happened, I've continued to kind of see this field on the left. It's still doing well, but its yield increases are pretty much flat. Where the yields on the rest of my farms, which are not as good a ground, but we are using chicken litter on, have steadily climbed. So yeah, I think over the course of the years, chicken litter can be a great amendment to your soil on building your soil up and providing greater productivity. But there are a lot of issues with chicken litter, and the closer your neighbors are, the bigger the issues are. You know, the one big bad thing about chicken litter is the smell. You know, to me, I've kind of gotten used to it. It doesn't bother me. It smells like money to me. To my neighbor that got an open window baking an apple pie, it doesn't smell so good. We farm, a lot of our ground is within the city limits of Jackson, Tennessee. The city limits have actually expanded outwards to encroach upon us. We were there first, but this last summer we had to fight the city council of Jackson because they were wanting to ban all chicken litter applications within the city limits of Jackson, even though Tennessee is a right to farm state. We got support from multiple agricultural agencies and groups on fighting that, and we were prepared to take legal action if we actually needed to. Luckily, after all of our efforts, the Jackson City Council saw they decided not to pursue the matter because they didn't have a legal leg to stand on. And a side note on that, you maybe think that the Tennessee Department of Agriculture might have had a big hand in that. We got absolutely zero support from the state agricultural agency in that issue. So if it happens in your state, private industry, private groups are going to be your best option on getting support in that. Do not expect any help from the government. Some other issues with chicken litter is availability. You pretty much have to take delivery of that product when it's available, when they're cleaning the barns out. It doesn't matter if it's the middle of harvest. It doesn't matter if it's the middle of the growing season. If you actually want the litter, you've got to take it when it's available, and they clean out the barns on a very strict schedule. This last year, in order to make sure that I got it, I had to leave out portions of my farm to actually dump litter on to make sure that I had it to spread for whenever we planted winter wheat. And then, again, with availability, if you have high fertilizer prices when you're going to need chicken litter the most, there's going to be a lot bigger demand for chicken litter, and you're going to be fighting everybody else. Price is probably going to go up, and unless you have the resources and contacts, it can be kind of hard to get. At least that's what we've seen in our area. Also, a lot of these chicken barns are owned by foreign landowners. There's been a lot from, I believe, Vietnam area, and there's a real language barrier there. Even if they do speak English, it can be difficult to understand them. And then also their customs, like we're real big on handshake agreements. I give you my word, I'm going to take the litter for this price. I'm going to expect that litter to be there for this price. A lot of them don't have the same values as us, and someone comes in after you, offers them another $2 a ton per litter. Guess who's getting it? It ain't going to be you. And then you won't know about that until you call them back and say, hey, where's my litter at? That's been something we've definitely seen. And then the spreading part. Not only do you have to source the litter, make sure you got somebody to truck it to you, you got to find somebody to spread it for you. And it's not like calling up your local co-op saying, hey, I want you to come spread this chicken litter. They're not set up to do it. And then a lot of maybe your lime spreading guys, they might have had the equipment to do it, but they don't want to mess with it. Otherwise, they'd be buying it and selling it themselves. So finding somebody to spread it can be hard because there's not many people that really want to mess with it. But if it's something that you know for a fact that you're going to be in long term, I highly advise you go ahead and get your own equipment to load it and spread it. We took that plunge this last summer. We got about probably a little over $50,000 in spreader and a high volume bucket to do it. And now that $8 to $12 application cost per ton, I'm now saving that, and we're buying somewhere around 2,000 tons per year. It'll take a few years, but that equipment will be paid for and making me profit here before too long. And then I'm not at the mercy of getting somebody in there. We plant wheat after our cotton is harvested. I want chicken litter on it. So, I've got a very small window there. I can get in there and I can be spreading my own litter and then not having to wait to plant wheat at all, wait for somebody else to come in and spread the litter. So if that's something you decide you're going to be in for long haul, definitely get your own equipment sooner rather than later. Proper management of litter. There are some things that can make using chicken litter a little bit easier and more convenient. First of all, you don't want to piss your neighbors off. If at all possible, spread during the winter time, spread when it's cooler. Hopefully spread it right in front of a rain. Rain will really get rid of the smell. If you're going to spread it, don't wait till August in the city limits when there's ball games going on. That does not go over very well. I'm not saying that I did it, but I have known it to happen from time to time. If you are in a populated area, when they do haul it out, if you're not spreading it right then, try to stockpile it out of sight. Out of sight, out of mind. If they can't see it, they might smell it, but they ain't gonna know where it's coming from, and they're not gonna point fingers. If you are really worried about the smell, again, incorporation, the smell's pretty much gone immediately. When it is delivered, unless you are ready to spread it right then, right there, always push all the loads up into a pile. Really helps it weather, really helps it shed water. You don't want the stuff to get wet. It does not spread well. It can cause issues with the belt. It's going to smell more, and your spread pattern is definitely going to be crap. Pardon the pun, but. Spread it up into a big pile really helps it weather. I know we took delivery last July of some. We didn't spread it until end of October, 1st of November, and when we dug into the pile, we had a little thin crust, but the rest of it was just nice, crumbly, dry. It spread fantastically. Only apply enough to cover your needs, because there is a real possibility of building certain nutrients up too high, especially like phosphorus. Only apply enough to cover your needs. And what we do, we apply 1.5 tons per acre, and then we will variable rate a commercial fertilizer, either DAP, most likely potassium. We will variable rate to meet our additional needs for that, to build our soils up to where we want. If you're going to apply it to soybeans, because you don't want your soybeans to be lazy in nitrogen production, apply it as early as you can, preferably the fall before you plant soybeans. And then if you apply it on cotton, reduce your synthetic fertilizer rate. Otherwise, the cotton will get away from you, and it'll get away from you in a hurry. This last year, we applied 50 pounds of synthetic nitrogen to our cotton crop. We didn't apply any chicken litter to our cotton crop just because I couldn't get it. We got a little bit of nitrogen from our cover crop, but 50 pounds of synthetic nitrogen per acre got us 1,300 pound cotton, over 100 pounds better than our previous best year. You don't need a lot of nitrogen to make big cotton. In fact, that trial that I showed you, the Nutritia trial that I showed you, I should have mentioned it then, those plots averaged the exact same at almost 1,300 pounds. We applied a grand total of 20 pounds of synthetic nitrogen to that plot. You can produce a lot of cotton with very little synthetic nitrogen. But if you apply chicken litter, you better make sure to reduce that synthetic nitrogen even more. Otherwise, it's not going to mature. It's not going to shut down at the end of the year. You're going to be fighting it all year long, and you'll just be wasting money. You don't need it. Absolutely do not need it. Well, that's the end of everything I got. Tyson, anything you want to cover, or if we got time for questions, whatever y'all want to do.
I think we got time for some questions. If anybody, you got any questions?
Matt, in the places where you're using litter continuously, are you seeing any issues with metal levels as far as aluminum or anything like that going up?
I'm not seeing it. Again, we're only applying the absolute minimum, 1.5 tons per acre, because I'm trying to spread it across all my acres. Right. I know there's a lot of people, they might spread 4 to 5 tons per acre. I think those are the ones that might see issues with their phosphorus levels getting so high. They might see problems with their heavy metals getting higher, but at 1.5 tons per acre, it might happen eventually, but I've not seen it yet.
Do you have a general percentage decrease in synthetic nitrogen in cotton that you were just talking about?
I don't have a formula, because we're getting nitrogen from multiple places. After many years of high biomass cover crops, our organic matter is averaging around a little over 3% now. So we're getting nitrogen from our organic matter breaking down. When I can get chicken litter and apply it, we're getting some nitrogen from the chicken litter too. The previous crop's residue, which will be corn, we're getting some nitrogen from there as it's getting broken down. So I don't really know exactly how much nitrogen we're getting from chicken litter. I do know, like in wheat, when we apply it right in front of wheat, the general rule of thumb is when you're planting wheat, you want about 30 pounds of nitrogen out there. Now we're planting wheat behind cotton, so we've got absolutely no residual nitrogen left. There's no organic matter being broken down because it's real late fall. There's no residue being broken down because cotton residue takes a long time to break down. And we're applying 1.5 tons per chicken litter, which has met that 30 pounds per acre of nitrogen requirement for our wheat. So I feel pretty comfortable that out of that 1.5 tons is, without it being incorporated, supplying us with at least 30 pounds of nitrogen.
How are you handling your nitrogen in your corn?
We've reduced it a little bit. Our maximum application rate in corn used to be around 200 pounds per acre. Since we've now modified that down to about 180 pounds of nitrogen per acre, and in our better spots of the field where you don't have tree lines or super thin soils, we're getting well over a bushel made per pound of nitrogen applied.
It looks like we are out of time, so let's give Matt a round of applause.
Thanks, sir.